Hi, and welcome to another episode of Sweet Skills Tips and Tweaks. I'm Nicole Heisterman, and I'm going to continue talking about suspension setup. We did a previous episode on setting up sag, so if you missed that one, you want to set your sag up first. And now we're going to talk about setting up compression and rebound damping. I like to use the analogy of a coffee press for how the suspension works, with the filter in that coffee press being the damping. So if the holes in that filter are big, then as I press the plunger down, it's going to press down way quicker than if I make the holes in that filter smaller. It's going to slow down how quickly I can press that plunger down. So the bigger holes are like less damping, the smaller holes are like more damping. If I was to close those holes in that filter altogether and make it a solid platform, then that would be the analogy for the locked out version of our suspension. The rebound damping works basically the same way, but in the opposite direction. So when the spring, whose tension or stiffness we set with our sag, when that spring starts to rebound after a compression, the holes in that filter dictate how quickly it can rebound back. So if those holes are large, we're going to get a really quick springy rebound. If the holes are smaller, we're going to get a slower rebound. So that's how the rebound damping works. One thing about the rebound damping when we're setting it up is if it's too slow, then what happens is that as with each subsequent compression, it doesn't have time to rebound all the way back. So we get what we call stacking up, and I end up going down farther and farther into my travel with each successive compression. That means that my rebound damping is too slow, or I've got too much damping. If it's feeling like it's really kind of like a pogo stick and bouncing back and it's really kind of harsh, then I might want to slow that rebound down or add a little bit more damping. The amount that we change those things really depends on our weight, the speed we ride at, and the kind of terrain choices we make. So it's going to vary by individual. Let's look at some examples of how we would adjust the damping. There's huge variability in what adjustments are possible on each shock and fork, so check the specs for your specific components. They may even give you a suggested starting setting for your weight. Let's start with rebound. The rebound adjustment dials are red. On the fork, they're found at the bottom of the fork leg. They may be covered with a cap or they may not. Take hold of the dial and turn it as far as you can in a counterclockwise direction, counting the number of clicks until you reach the end. Then count the number of clicks total until you reach the other end. This gives you the total amount of adjustability on the rebound damping. I suggest starting somewhere in the middle, so if you have 12 clicks, suggest starting around 6. The rebound damping on the rear shock will be a red dial. It won't always be quite as obvious as this, but there will be a red dial somewhere. Use the same process to set the rebound damping on the rear shock. Compression damping uses blue dials. This fork has the ability to be in full open mode, more compression damping in a trail mode, and the most compression damping in a full lockout mode. This particular fork also has the ability with this top dial to adjust the nuances of the compression damping in the open mode. Again, with this dial, use the same process as we did in the rebound dial, determine the total number of clicks available, and then start somewhere in the middle before you do your fine tuning. This rear shock also has an open, partial compression trail, and closed mode. If we look closer, there's a spot in the center for a hex key, and there's a dial in the center that fine tunes the compression damping in the open mode. We use the same process to adjust this as we did with the other stuff. So now we've got our fairly neutral settings for the compression and rebound damping. We want to just make sure our bike is in sync. So we don't want our fork rebounding faster than our rear suspension or vice versa. We want the bike to float kind of like this through the travel. If the rear end has quicker rebound than the front, it's going to act kind of like a bucking bronco and push you over the handlebars. If the front is rebounding faster than the rear, then you're going to get this kind of sensation. So what you want to do is you can check the rebound speed just by compressing your fork and feeling how quickly that comes back. You can do that over the back end, seeing how quickly that comes back. I feel like I like to get on a flat surface and stand on my bike, compress through the fork a few times, feel how fast that's springing back, compress through my heels a few times, see how fast that's springing back, and then stand in the middle of the bike and compress the whole bike and just get a feel that the whole bike is coming up and down at the same rate. If it's not, then you can adjust that rebound speed by speeding up one or the other, either the front or the back. Then we go to Finetune, and we want to do that on the trails. So you want to choose a section of trail with some maybe faster bumps and maybe a couple of compressions, and you want to ride that section of trail, see how the fork feels, see how that rebound feels, feel how the compression feels. Does it feel really harsh? And then you can go back and ride that trail again with adjusting your damping by 2 or 3 clicks in one direction or the other to fine tune how that feels and get your fork feeling amazing. So let's hit the trails.
Shut up and sit down.